Gentleman yields back. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Nebraska, Mr. Flood, who's also chair of the Subcommittee on Housing Insurance, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I think it's important to keep in mind the significant and devastating effects inflation has on the American consumer's purchasing power. I think many Americans forgot just how bad inflation could get. From 1983 through 2020, the Personal Consumption Expenditures Index never touched 6% year over year. As a result of that long period of fairly stable prices, I think some policymakers also forgot just how insidious inflation could be. As the pandemic began to wind down in 2021, Congress, led by Democrats, put both feet on the gas, doubling down on more spending, and after an already historic amounts of stimulus that had passed into law in 2020. That spending, combined with supply constraints resulting from when the economy was returning to normal after COVID-19, combined to create the worst inflation this country has seen in decades. Inflation is a tax on everybody. It makes everything you buy more expensive. It's a hidden tax on all goods, services that slowly erodes the value of Americans' paychecks. In light of that experience, I do think it's warranted to have a conversation about the Federal Reserve's efforts to fight inflation in the future. Mr. Dubé and Mr. Holtzekine, both of you spoke about the importance of keeping the Federal Reserve focused on fighting inflation in your testimonies. Do you feel it would make more complicated to conduct Federal Reserve policy if Congress gave them more mandates, say on climate or other items, things that they'd have to worry about in addition to the two in the dual mandate that they already have?
There's no doubt about it, and I'd like to reiterate, I think it said it twice before, but they just don't have the ability or tools to do any additional mandates either. So it would both distract, and they don't have the ability to achieve any other mandate.
Agreed.
Received. Mr. Pollack, in your testimony, you made the case that the Federal Reserve already has 8 mandates, not just the 2. And I know you mentioned them earlier in this hearing, but for our benefit, can you list the 8 mandates you feel the Fed already has, and what do you think the effect of adding more mandates to the mix would be?
Thank you, Congressman. Well, the effect of adding more, obviously, is to make it more difficult what is already difficult or really impossible. Let me come to my list of the mandates here. I think they are to furnish an elastic currency. That's the first line of the original Federal Reserve Act of 1913. To finance the government, that is essential to all central banks. The reason that government debt is considered so high quality is because the central bank will always buy it if nobody else will. Of course, that will generate inflation when they monetize the deficits. Then we have the famous triple mandate of the 1977 Act, simultaneously employment, stable prices. And I was so glad to hear Congressman Sherman say that it's obvious that stable prices mean zero inflation. I think that's also true. And moderate long-term interest rates, which always gets forgotten. Then the Fed also has regulating financial stability. That's actually the second line of the original 1913 Act. They called it improving regulation, but it meant the same thing. Then there is make money for the government. The Fed is set up to make money for the government by exploiting their monopoly currency issuing power, which is a monopoly given to the Fed by the Congress. And finally, they have the mandate to pay for the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, a mandate we could easily get rid of and should.
We would like to do that very much. Here's what I'll say as we end here, and my time is coming to a close. I truly support an independent Federal Reserve. I think it's part of the magic that makes our financial system the envy of the world, and it's worth protecting. I want to ensure that we're all in a good position to resist calls to further expand the Fed's scope, injecting more uncertainty into their future actions. And I also want to make sure that we have sufficient transparency to ensure that Congress and the people can understand why the Fed makes the decisions it makes. With that, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.